What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. It's time for Upset Alert Week 5, where we pick the 8 games that we think are most likely to be upsets for the upcoming weekend. And to be an upset, the spread has to be 4 points or more. And I've really failed the last 2 weeks. We have missed some of the big upsets. I think we've only had 1 out of the 8 games the last 2 weeks, and normally the goal is kind of to get 2, maybe 3 of these upsets that are actually going to happen. Sometimes you just don't have any upsets, but this year we have had the upsets, and I have missed some of the big ones. We have seen some really, really big upsets. So this past week, of course, Miami being upset with Middle Tennessee. I missed that one. Somebody actually commented, I think, on that one and said that Miami should be on upset alert. And I just didn't see it coming. I honestly didn't know much about Middle Tennessee, but they outplayed Miami. They upset them. And then there's really no excuse for me not putting Kansas State, Oklahoma on here as many times as Kansas State has upset Oklahoma. I guess I just overreacted to Kansas State losing to Tulane and Oklahoma just destroying Nebraska. You have to remember, in college football, the same teams don't show up week to week. A lot of times a team gets a big win, they have a letdown the next week. A team loses a big game, the next week they come back extra focused. And that's why college football can be really tough to predict sometimes. You have to look at the psychological side of things. It's not just the X's and O's and the talent. Sometimes those things do go into it. How well does a team prepare? Now, we go back again to last week, and almost 4 of the 8 games are upsets. The one that did happen was Texas Tech. They upset Texas. Auburn was, literally an inch away from being upset by Missouri. Wake Forest went to overtime. Had a great shot at beating Clemson, and Oregon State just almost upset USC. So while we only had 1 of the 8, we were really, really close on 3 others. Really close. So it was almost a big week, almost 4 of the 8 games, but instead just 1. Looking ahead to Week 5, it's tough. It is really, really tough this week because there are a ton of games. There are a ton of games. So what I did, I narrowed it down to the ones that I really wanted to put in the video. That got me down to 10. And so then I just went with the 8 biggest upsets. So the 2 that didn't make it in were Kentucky, Ole Miss. I think that has a great shot to be an upset. Kentucky's already proven that they can go on the road and upset Florida. So, it was not surprising at all. Wouldn't be surprising at all if they upset Ole Miss. And then Indiana, Nebraska. Nebraska, we just don't know how they're going to be. Indiana's a capable team, so that's another game that could possibly be an upset. And maybe keep an eye out for Auburn, LSU. Based off of what we've seen so far this season, there's no reason to think that Auburn could win that game. But it's going to be windy. It's going to be rainy. It's going to be a night game in Jordan-Hare. It's a rivalry. You never know about that game. Minnesota coming off a huge win. Could they be upset by Purdue? There are a ton of games that could make it into this video. But we had to narrow it down to 8. That's just kind of the rules that I put in place for this series. So let's just get right to it, going from the least likely to most likely, in my opinion. So the least likely of the 8 games, but still possible, is Alabama, Arkansas. And I believe that Arkansas losing to Texas A&M makes this one a little bit more likely. I think if Arkansas comes into this game undefeated, feeling real confident, then maybe that could bite them here. But losing that game, maybe Alabama overlooks. I wouldn't say overlook. They're not going to overlook Arkansas, but maybe they're not as hyped up for this game. Maybe they think, well, Texas A&M beat them. We're going to win this game. But it could have been a game day game if Arkansas had beaten Texas A&M potentially. This is a huge game, and this is the game where we find out, all right, is Arkansas for real? Is Arkansas really a top 10, top 15 team like we thought they were before that Texas A&M game? And also we find out about Alabama. The only real big game they played is Texas, and they looked horrible in that game. Is that the real Alabama, or was that game kind of a fluke? If Alabama is the team that we thought they were going to be coming into this year, they will win this game easily. But I don't know if that's the case or not, so we're going to find out. I'm really, really excited about this game to find out about these 2 teams. I think it'll be pretty competitive regardless. But if those issues do come back for Alabama, Arkansas absolutely could pull off an upset. Where I worry about this one is that Arkansas secondary going up against Bryce Young. If they don't get pressure on him, Alabama's going to score a lot of points in this game. So that's my big concern there for Arkansas. If they can get pressure on him, if that offensive line fails Alabama, then this game could be close. All right, NC State versus Clemson. This game at 7:30 Eastern time on ABC. It's game day, all of that. With the hurricane, who knows if this game could possibly be moved or something. As of now, I haven't heard anything on that, which would be crazy because I guess game day would have to go somewhere else as well. I don't know what they would do. Yeah, you got NC State versus Clemson here. Both teams undefeated. Clemson has shown some weaknesses for sure, but the offense is starting to come along. NC State has been pretty steady since that close game against East Carolina. These are just two quality football teams, two teams going at it. That's why game day is going to be there. And NC State will have a shot, but playing on the road, that makes it tough. This one, if this one was at NC State, I would pick the upset, but because it's at Clemson, I still think the Tigers find a way to get it done. That's a tough place to play, and it may be another game where it's windy and rainy, so it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. I think, though, that NC State is capable of winning this game. They did it last year, so absolutely Clemson has to be on upset alert. How about Michigan and Iowa? A couple of weeks ago, I would have told you there's no way this game is going to be an upset. Iowa has no offense, but we started to see the last couple of weeks they've got a little bit of offense. It's not the most explosive offense in the country, but they do have a little bit of offense now finally. They had some receivers injured those first couple of weeks. I think that really hurt them. And the defense is still really good. And for Michigan, J.J. McCarthy didn't look as good as I thought he was going to against Maryland. And he's got to go on the road. First real test of his career on the road at Iowa, where he's the guy, he's the starter. Will that pressure get to him? This was a game that a lot of people, including me in the preseason, did pick to be an upset. It was that game that Michigan would trip up in. Again, a couple of weeks ago, I would have said, nah, that's not going to happen. But now it's starting to believe that Iowa might just have a shot in this game. I think it'll be pretty close. And playing at home, Iowa, you never know. They've pulled off some big upsets there before. How about Texas Tech at Kansas State? Both teams coming off of huge wins. Kansas State upsetting Oklahoma, Texas Tech upsetting Texas. That was the one upset from the video last week. Kansas State's favored by 8. But which Kansas State team's going to show up? We saw them lose to Tulane and beat Oklahoma. Texas Tech has been a little bit more steady. They lost to a good NC State team, but they've been pretty steady this year, a little bit more consistent than Kansas State. And so maybe the steady team wins this one. Who knows? It's a toss-up for me. I'm very surprised the spread is at 8 points. I think that's really just because Kansas State beat Oklahoma. I think this will be a close game, one-score game that could go either way. So, yeah, watch out for this one potentially to be an upset. How about Wake Forest at Florida State? This one should be a good one. It's also scheduled for 3:30 Eastern time on Saturday right now on ABC, but I have a hard time seeing them playing this game at that time with the hurricane. Maybe it's kind of passed through there by then. I don't know. Florida State's favored by 7, though. And just with that, the hurricane, is that a distraction for Florida State? I've already heard Dave Clawson talk about how they weren't going to travel down there if it wasn't safe. And both teams could be distracted by that. Florida State's a good team, but Wake Forest is a good team as well. This, I think, I really want to see this game. I hope they play it. If they don't play Saturday, I hope they play Sunday. But this is going to be a really good game. I mean, two quality teams, and it's going to be a fun one. Can't wait to see what happens here. I think it's a toss-up, though. Surprised that Florida State's favored by 7. I'm surprised that I'm even able to use this in the video because I would have thought the spread would have been under 4. Should be a great game there, Wake Forest and Florida State. And then we got West Virginia at Texas. This one's at 7:30 Eastern time on FS1. Texas favored by 9.5. That's very surprising after their loss to Texas Tech. I know they're playing at home here. Which Texas team is going to show up? They look great against Alabama. Not great last week. You can even go down to the UTSA game, break that game in half. They looked really good in the second half, not so good in the first half. But I just think West Virginia is being overlooked here. You see the 2-2 record, you think, yeah, West Virginia's not that. West Virginia is a good team. I've seen enough out of them. Their defensive front is good. They destroyed Virginia Tech last week. And, that loss to Kansas, all of a sudden Kansas looks like a really good team. Pittsburgh's a good team. They've lost to good teams. They're capable of winning this game. And, again, this is another game where I think I'm surprised with the spread at 9.5. That's a pretty high number. I think it'll be a close game. Now, Texas plays the way they did against Alabama. Quinn Ewers plays in this game. Yeah, I could see Texas winning it easily, but there's just too much uncertainty there. And so I think more than likely this does turn into a close game. And then we've got Oklahoma at TCU. Of course, Oklahoma just lost to Kansas State, so no reason to think that they couldn't lose again. TCU hasn't really been tested yet. This will be a great test for them, but they're playing at home, 6.5-point favorites, or underdogs, I should say, in this game. It'll be on ABC at noon Eastern time. Oklahoma, inconsistent this year. Which Oklahoma team shows up? TCU, first test, just don't know too much about them. There's enough here to absolutely say that they could win this game, and that's why the spread's only 6.5. That'll be a good one, I think. And then finally, we've got Illinois versus Wisconsin, the most likely upset to happen, in my opinion, at noon Eastern time on the Big Ten Network. Wisconsin's favored by 7. They just don't have a lot of offense, so this feels like a game that's going to be very close, low scoring, and there's no reason to think that any team should be favored by 7 points. I think it'll be a close game. Illinois has actually looked pretty good this year. Wisconsin, like I said, their offense has been terrible. It's going to be a low-scoring game, a lot of running of the football, a lot of defense, but a game again that I think could go either way. Wouldn't be surprised if Illinois pulled off the upset. So those are my picks for this week. Give me your thoughts on these games. Which games do you think could be upsets that I didn't list? Like I said, there are a ton of games this week. I could have made a 20-game video probably, because there are a ton of games where I think we could potentially see upsets. It's going to be a fun weekend. Probably I'd say this, definitely week 5 is going to give us the most competitive games, we have a lot of conference games are starting now, so we're going to have a lot more games this week that mean a lot more across the country. Going to be a lot of fun this weekend. Hopefully everyone stays safe down there in Florida. I know the hurricane's pretty rough. Hopefully you guys stay safe. And hopefully all the football games can be played if they have to be rescheduled. Hey, that's not really that big of a deal. We might get some games on. We've already got a couple of games on Sunday. Might get a couple more. And that'll just be more college football. We just get to watch football another day. So I'm all for that. Again, thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.